Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into this. We all have that one exam, right? The one that literally keeps you up at night. The subject that never quite clicks, usually taught by a notoriously difficult professor. We are talking incredibly high stakes here. The source material we're looking at today tells the story of a student facing exactly this kind of nightmare. An impending, absolutely brutal organic chemistry final that was causing just immense anxiety. With just a week on the clock, they basically had to pull off a miracle.
And to give you an idea of just how dire the situation was, get this. The student is walking into this final week clutching a struggling 61% average in the course. They were feeling completely lost. And as anyone who has ever taken organic chemistry knows, the concepts are like a giant puzzle. They relentlessly build on each other. Once you lose the thread, your quiz scores just become wildly inconsistent. To make matters even more terrifying, this upcoming final exam, it was worth a massive 40% of their entire overall course grade. So a bad day here wouldn't just hurt a little bit, it would entirely ruin the semester. No pressure, right? So that brings us to the million-dollar question. How on earth do you prepare for your hardest exam when you only have 7 days left? Well, this student made a pretty radical decision. They decided to use AI exclusively for every single step of their prep. We're not talking about just using it as a backup or to Google a quick fact. It was their primary system from day one straight through to the night before. It basically became this intense ticking clock protocol. Let's break down exactly how this was structured.
Starting the countdown with day 1, building the math. Now, what's really fascinating here is that the crucial first step wasn't diving headfirst into the textbook or trying to cram. Not at all. The first step was figuring out exactly what they needed to know, and more importantly, in what order. So, using ChatGPT, the student pasted in their syllabus and exam topics. They asked the AI to rank them by how heavily they're typically tested in organic chemistry and to build a 3-hour-a-day schedule that hit the highest risk areas first. And the output? A total revelation. It instantly realized that reaction mechanisms and stereochemistry, which is basically how molecules are arranged in 3D space, had to come first. It pushed the easier stuff to the end of the week. That one single prompt saved them an hour of confused, panicked planning.
But they didn't stop there. A brilliant follow-up prompt generated a highly personalized watch list. They actually asked the AI to pinpoint the top 3 most common mistakes students make that cost them the most marks. Confusing 3D structures with basic isomers, not drawing out mechanisms fully, and skipping oxidation state checks. Those 3 things became their active radar. For the rest of the week, every single practice problem was cross-checked against those specific, costly errors.
Building on that map, we move into the next phase of the ticking clock. 6 days out, the focus shifts entirely to processing reaction mechanisms. 5 days out, it's all about diagnosing those really hard concepts. 4 days out, the dreaded mock exam. It was time to finally tackle those 12 major reaction mechanisms and the downright terrifying stereochemistry concepts.
Jumping into day 2, they used the tool called NotebookLM. Because look, they needed to truly understand the molecular level of these reactions, right? Not just blindly memorize them. So they uploaded their actual course PDFs. They asked NotebookLM to explain the SN2 reaction, which is this very specific chemical substitution, in plain language, strictly based on those notes. This was huge because it kept the explanations completely grounded in the professor's specific framing, matching exactly what would be on the test, rather than just pulling random chemistry facts from the internet.
Then came day 3, which was totally dedicated to stereochemistry, basically the topic the student had been dreading the absolute most. This time, they switched to Claude to create a back-and-forth diagnostic conversation. Instead of just passively reading a textbook, they literally instructed the AI to act like a tutor. Ask me questions one at a time to find exactly where my understanding breaks down. It's incredibly smart. And you know what? This diagnostic drill worked beautifully. It zeroed in on one hyper-specific gap, the RNS configuration step, which is basically figuring out the handedness of a molecule. Because the problem was so isolated now, they were able to spend 40 minutes drilling just that one single step with 5 practice assignments. By the end of day 3, stereochemistry actually felt manageable. It was no longer this terrifying black hole.
All right, moving on to day 4, the crucial pivot. Honestly, this was arguably the most critical day of the whole week. It revolved entirely around facing the absolute, unvarnished truth of their progress by taking a full mock exam. The student went back to ChatGPT and generated a notoriously hard exam, specifying the exact types of questions they needed.
But the real magic here isn't just generating the test. The student actually printed it out. They left their phone in another room, set a 90-minute timer, and took it under strict, real-world conditions. Feeling that discomfort of working without a safety net is exactly what makes a mock exam so effective.
After 90 minutes of sweating it out, they pasted their answers back into Claude for grading and a weakness assessment. And the results were incredibly revealing. Day 2 and 3's prep totally worked. Mechanisms and stereochemistry were actually strong areas now. But multi-step synthesis? That was a glaring, undeniable weakness. The student completely understood the individual reactions, but they were really struggling to logically chain them together. Which brings us right into days 5 and 6, targeted drilling and consolidation. Because knowing exactly what you're bad at is half the battle, right? On day 5, the preparation aggressively shifted to fixing that specific gap and locking the knowledge in. A targeted prompt forced the student to confront their weakness head-on. They asked Claude for one problem at a time, specifically requesting to be walked through the logical thinking process. Over a grueling 2.5-hour session, they worked through 8 problems. The first 4 required a lot of heavy guidance, but by the last 4, they were successfully and independently crushing multi-step sequences. They basically took their biggest weakness and flipped it into confidence.
So then day 6 was all about consolidation. Absolutely no new material. They used ChatGPT for a quick, rapid-fire review of 20 key points and 5 confirmation questions, just to make sure everything stuck. And they answered all 5 correctly. Then, in this really radical act of trust in their own structured prep, they stopped studying entirely at 8 p.m. They packed their bag, turned it all off, and went to sleep, knowing full well that cramming only produces anxiety, but sleep produces marks.
And here we are, day 7, the final result. You can practically feel the tension building, right? Exam day finally arrives. Now, the student walked into that room still feeling nervous. I mean, it's still a notoriously hard exam, obviously. But they had this very specific, hard-earned confidence because of the framework they'd built. They knew exactly what they knew. So the ultimate question, did the 7-day AI protocol actually work? During the exam, they encountered several questions that directly matched their practice. For the massive multi-step synthesis question, they relied heavily on those day 5 thinking processes they had drilled so intensely. They confidently engaged with every single question, cross-checking their work against those 3 common mistakes they identified on day 1. And here is the dramatic reveal. The final exam score was an 81%. Seriously, that is an absolutely incredible leap from their previous 61% average. It is pure proof that highly structured, targeted effort actually pays off.
To really put that into perspective, because the final was worth 40% of the course, this one, phenomenally executed exam, literally yanked their entire overall course grade up from a D all the way to a B-. That's a game changer.
But here is the absolutely crucial takeaway from this explainer. AI didn't do the work for them. It wasn't some magic shortcut where they pressed a button and got an A. What it actually provided was a structured diagnostic that made every single hour of those 7 days highly targeted. Without that day 4 mock exam acting as a diagnostic, they probably would have wasted days just reviewing everything instead of actually fixing their specific gaps.
So let's look at the playbook 4 rules for success.
If you're a student staring down the barrel of a massive, intimidating exam, this protocol isn't just about chemistry, it's a universal system you can use. Here are your 4 core rules for success. Number 1, map out your priorities before you even touch the material. Know your targets. Number 2, take a mock exam under real conditions. I'm talking paper, pen, and absolutely 0 distractions. Number 3, drill the specific gap the mock exam identifies and nothing else. 1 targeted day of study is easily worth 3 unfocused days. And number 4, trust your prep and go to sleep the night before. You have to realize just how deliberate and structured this method needs to be.
So I'll leave you with this final inspiring thought. The tools to diagnose your weaknesses and completely structure your success are quite literally sitting right at your fingertips. What impossible exam are you going to conquer next using this highly structured 7-day AI method? Take this framework, apply it to your next big hurdle, and just see what you can achieve. See you in the next explainer.